Good evening and welcome. Say good evening. It's good evening, good afternoon. It could be anything at the moment, wherever you're watching from in the world. We have our first comments in. Natasha Stanley says hello. Richard Cole says Grant rocks. Oh, thank you very much, Richard Cole. Check it in the post for you. Each week we bring you an expert stage hypnosis performer, someone who walks the talk and is out there. And each week someone has something different to bring to the table, and these series of live streams really are about meeting people that are at the top of their game out there performing hypnosis and doing a phenomenal job of kind of promoting the work of stage hypnosis and hypnosis in general. There we go. Roy Miller is here as well. Roy's a regular. Richard Cole says, and so does Erick Känd. Brilliant. So yes, tonight's guest Erick is a phenomenal performance hypnotist. What he hasn't done and doesn't do when it comes to stage hypnosis, and he has some brilliant tips and tales from the road. So without further ado, I'm going to play this graphic and then we're going to have Erick on. So please fire your questions over, show him some love, sprinkle some love, share this amongst your hypnotist friends, and yes, please make some noise for Erick Känd. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bang your keyboard, make some noise for the hypnotist that is Erick Känd. He'll appear here. No, here. There he
is. Greetings.
Hey. How are you?
Hey, super fantastic. How's it going?
It's okay, just about. How are things? Whereabouts you are in America now? Are you out performing at the moment?
Yeah, performances are, at least the high school performances seem to be opening up. I live in Florida, which if you follow United States news is the most loosey-goosey of all the states in regard to COVID. So to me, I don't really think about it that much, but it is affecting events. And the high school events are opening up with the nighttime ones. So in the United States, we have post-proms. Those have been going full bore. Those are more or less over now. Now we're going to hit the nighttime grad parties, and those seem to be going full bore. A lot of people are waiting. They're realizing they waited too long, and now they're booking them or trying to book them at the last minute. Yeah. So there are people asking about something 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. So they probably miss the boat because everybody's asking for like the same events. The daytime high school shows haven't materialized, at least for me yet. They, these are like assemblies, senior breakfasts, which is something that senior breakfast is like a daytime event for seniors where they dress up and sometimes they'll have entertainment. Those are big in the Florida and California. Those got canceled, this year. And anything where the administrative staff is there and in charge, they're not willing to do it. Yeah. But where the parents are in charge, they're like, yeah, screw it. We want to do something for the kids. We are so done with this. Even if it's at the campus, they're getting permission to do it. Colleges are starting to open up with usually restrictions because colleges love to be politically correct, right? So, mask up or whatever you need to do to make that happen. And surprisingly, I just recently have started getting some inquiries about in the event, we call them Smurfs, social, military, religious, fraternal. That's a Smurf event. So nice. What's happening now is I got booked for a yacht club coming up this following weekend. I've done shows for this yacht club before, but yacht club's membership is basically wealthy senior citizens. And so with the fact that they're opening up an event, I said, are you sure you want to do a show? Are you ready for this? And she said, look, we had a dance. We had a lot of people show up. They're chomping at the bit to do things now. So the seniors and another agent was asking me about not a commitment, but like asking about a senior community. Some of the senior communities in Florida, huge operations, and they do entertainment. And he said, this agent said he hadn't had a show in a year, and he just had a recent show, and like 250 people had showed up. So that seems like a bit of a turnaround. I don't expect corporations are going to start showing up until, because they need a 6 or 9 month window. They can't just plan something in a week for a conference. They got to let people know. People got to get hotels. So I think for 2021, they're just going to sit it out again and wait till next year, because they, I would too, if they can't plan on even knowing if they're going to have a hotel to be allowed to have the event in. So sadly, that's one of the markets I really go after, is the corporate one. I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we'll have a lot of holiday parties, and the pendulum's going to go in the direction of, we are sick of not being able to hug and touch people. We want entertainment where we got bodies flopping on top of one another. Let's do hypnosis.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that'll happen by the end of the year.
I must be in the UK, we're in lockdown, and we're just slowly coming out of it now. But I've done a couple of socially distanced shows during that time.
Yeah.
And for me, it was so much harder. The dynamics were so different when they're not kind of flopped on each other and that physical contact's not there.
Yeah, I've had a few where some of my so-called COVID events, the ones for the nighttime for the schools, they're kind of very lackadaisical. Everything was normal. I've had a few where nobody's wearing a mask anyway. I'm wearing a mask to show, I'm wearing a face shield to show that I'm a professional and I care. But I mean, the students didn't have to wear them. They weren't in some of those cases. But some of the college ones have been, we got a 60 limit room size, and let's just put them all in this auditorium that could hold 1,000. It's kind of like performing in a vacuum. You see the smiles on people's faces, but you're not hearing the laughter because they've got them spread out through the whole room. So it's a little bit surreal to do something like that, but at least they're doing what they feel they need to do to have live events. I'm glad to at least be able to get it going again, because that means we're getting more and more comfortable having events until we are able to go just back to normal, whatever our new normal will be.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, it's weird. I saw someone else post something on Florida, and it was like literally being back to normal. It was, I think it was a band performing at a pier somewhere, and it was really,
that's the norm. That's the norm. That's the norm here. You could go to a concert or whatever. Like I was, I was at some big brewer we have here, and they had one of the big local bands. There's about 1,000 people there. No, they were wearing masks, but I mean, everybody's hustling around and moving around and drinking beers, masks coming off. And so there's any number of restaurants. I could go at any time and take a picture, panoramic view of a restaurant. You won't see anybody wearing a mask. Our game here in Florida is we have to walk through the door with the mask on. It's like, and then once you're past the entry, nobody monitors anything, and you can take it off if you want. It seems to be, you wear your mask to get in the door, and you have to wear a mask if you go to the supermarket still, because the businesses still are free to enforce their own rules. But I think our governor's he might have already lifted the mask requirement generally, maybe just within the last day or so. He was talking about it.
Well, I'm just, there's a bit of an echo. I think people can hear me talking through you. So what it is when I'll speak, I'll just mute me, and I think that should fix it, but they'll let me know in the comment section. So before COVID happened, what was it like for you? What was your main work? Where were you performing? What was life like pre-COVID?
You mean in terms of what types of performances I do?
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, I mean, my personal kind of show mix is almost an even 30-30-30 mix between corporate events, high schools, and colleges in terms of number of shows. I really market heavily towards the corporate market. High schools just find you because they're looking, and the colleges are the most fun shows to do. That's I'm kind of hit and miss in terms of my success rate in getting new business in those arenas. And then I have the occasional annual fair. I'm not deep and wide in the fair market, but there's usually do 1 or 2 fairs a year. And then we've got what I call the Smurfs, this surprise community events, or kind of different kinds of parties, maybe like a military type of thing or something like that. So it's a good mix, because that's the kind of mix that keeps you working all year long. In terms of, the summertime events kind of dry up for all the campuses. So if you don't have some corporate events or conferences going, you're kind of like twiddling your thumbs. I used to avoid doing sessions. I started out doing sessions, when I first got started, like around 20 years ago. And then I started doing shows. And then when I moved to Florida from California, I started not doing sessions at all, because I didn't like being on the road. You're going to land the plane, you're dead tired. You're gonna have 4 calls to return about setting up an appointment. It's like, I don't want to be doing that. I want to be taking a nap and then getting ready for the show and not feel like I just, it was just too much. But now there's so much great technology and automation where people can schedule these calls online, and it's integrated now, for me at least, to the point where they can integrate those calls, and they're not going to be able to schedule a call or a session at a time when I'm on the road. It automatically just gets blocked off the calendar. So now it's everything seamlessly. You come home, these calls are booked, you do your sessions, and it's all kind of being taken behind the scenes, and I don't have to get involved in the back and forth with the phones. And once I saw that was possible, then I'm like, I'm kind of excited to do sessions now, because the administration side, which I really loathe, had been largely taken out of it. So that I was kind of getting that set up right before COVID pandemic hit. So I was glad I did, because that's been a big part of keeping the business going, is doing hypnosis sessions online and live. I do them live or online, doesn't matter to me.
It's one of the things that one of the positives that's come from COVID, I suppose, the technology and people's acceptance of the technology to kind of stream, to go live, to do sessions online as well. That's kind of really ramped that up and moved it up a gear, kind of. So that's been a great positive.
Yeah, you're right. For a while, I only use Zoom just to make it easy to automate. And for a while, people were very kind of fumbling around, not being able to log on. But I haven't been running into that very often recently. The acid test is, can my mom log in and use this technology? And, she can use Zoom. So, I think it's generally accepted by the population. Almost everybody's on it. And if they're not on it, they might not be a good fit if they're doing online sessions.
Yeah.
That's the cool silver lining for all this, is the upgrades in technology, for sure.
Absolutely. You talked about kind of the automation side of things as well, but also about the kind of three different markets that you're in. Was that a conscious effort to market to those markets? I know I was kind of taught when I first started taking this seriously, that actually look for your ideal client and work towards those. So was that 3 specific markets you tailored your marketing towards?
Yeah. I tailor my marketing to the corporate market. This is my thinking, because there's not a lot of people competing for the corporate market. It seems like there is, but a lot of hypnotists are avoiding it, because if you're going to do shows in the corporate market, they're hard.
Yeah.
Right. They're not like college. I mean, I was comfortable with it in the beginning, because for some reason, the first shows that I did, for the most part, were corporate shows. And I'm like, oh man, I suck. These are hard. I'm not getting the reactions that I'm seeing from XYZ hypnotists, at the fair. And then I got my first show at UCSD in California. And I'm like 20 seconds into the induction, and people are falling over. And I'm like, I was too stupid to even know that the difference in demographics made such a big deal. So as far as how I'm strategizing my show and my marketing, I'm trying to appeal to the corporate market, because if you can do a show that's good for a very conservative group, perhaps even a reluctant group, because the bread and butter for me is like those corporate events that are planned internally, maybe by their HR rep, about 150 people, but they still have a budget that's 3 times what a high school show would pay sometimes. So that's what I'm shooting for, as far as appealing to that group. If I can make a show that's going to appeal and work for that sort of reluctant audience, I could always add more pizzazz for high schoolers or collegiates. But if you're doing college all the time and expect a certain reaction from your audience, and you try to trot that in on a corporate audience and try to make that, that's like running the sausage mill backwards. It's not going to fly too well. And if you don't get the response you're looking for, you might be a little bit surprised, or get shot in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's again, you're more about this than me, the kind of corporate side. It's, if your videos, your PR is coming out and it's all kind of corporate end stuff as well, it's easy for that to trickle down and gain you bookings in different markets. Whereas if you shoot for the school market, the fair market, it's difficult to then upgrade that to the corporate market as well.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's going to be very difficult to book at a corporate event, a high level corporate event, if your promo video is all high school kids. They're just not going to be able to think, oh, this is not our group. I do have two distinct promo videos. One is just campus, which is high school and college, because it's almost the same age group. It's either high school seniors or college freshmen, and you just mix and match and just don't reference what schools they're from. And then the corporate event, all corporate types of people, so that they are not wondering, I wonder if this is going to work with our group. They need to see their group to get that level of comfort, because the corporate market, they're making a decision based on fear. They're wondering, am I going to get fired? Is this going to go south? So they want to see lots of social proof that this is going to work at an event that's like theirs. So that's where the efforts goes. A high school is always going to be like, oh, wow, we got this killer corporate entertainer. Like, for them, it's an upgrade, and corporate events will be, I think, comfortable for seeing, if you do college things, that's like legit. But I don't think they want to be seeing a lot of high school stuff all over the place. I have it out there. You can find it on my website, but it's not front and center.
I was just saying that as well. Your YouTube is a great mix of, you've got some kind of motivational stuff, some comedy stuff, some corporate stuff, some self-help stuff. You've got a great mix of stuff on there. How have you found YouTube and social media for when it comes to attracting new clients?
And that's a good point too. Every time I post a new video, I separate it by playlist. There's a corporate playlist, campus playlist, self-help playlist, so that people can stumble, and then they're going to be on that feed if they stumble upon that video. Social media in general is not a producer of shows for me, other than YouTube. So I'm not booking shows from Facebook or Instagram. I'm not smart enough or whatever to be a TikTok sensation and start booking corporate events. I honestly don't really think that my buyers are looking through those channels. People claim to be booking through there. I don't know how to do it. So, but YouTube was a long-term play for me. I was in a National Speakers Association meeting, which is a good group if you're in any kind of doing corporate stages. They're always talking about marketing and stage presence, so you get a lot out of it in that respect. We were brainstorming for things, and I came to this conclusion that I'm going to start posting like a snippet of a show a week, because what I do is so visual, and YouTube is the second largest search engine. So why wouldn't I start doing that? Now, I made that commitment. I'm not posting as regular now, but I certainly did in the beginning, and it took about 2 years. But after about 2 years, when I asked the question, how did you find me? That's when people started saying, oh, YouTube, got you on YouTube. So, and then that becomes more and more of a thing. And of course, you watch every time you do a Google search. Google is trying to include YouTube videos in that search. So if you have something relevant, it will be shown. So that's something to strongly consider. And it's fun to get the snippets. If you're processing video, you're always getting more promo clips, and you're also it is important to watch your own performances too, and to see where you can clean up your act, so to speak.
That's a great tip. Watching your own performances back is a must for fine tuning and polishing that stone, because your memory of how the show went versus what the audience actually sees are two very different things. So it's sometimes you can do a great show, but by watching it back, you actually go, oh, I shouldn't have stood there. I shouldn't have done this. And that's how you develop and really polish that.
Yeah, we could go into a little short little side thing of what stage hypnotists tend to do with their body language that I feel is not necessarily additive to the performance. If you don't watch the video, you can very easily get into that habit where you're blocking participants, not realizing you're doing it because you're focused on that participant. So doing little things where you're positioning yourself so that you're not, you're facing the audience and facing them. And I catch myself doing goofy things all the time. And I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that. A lot of bad habits or good habits I was developing kind of went by the wayside because not a lot of shows recently. The other thing is the nervous pacer. They're running around, pacing out the nervous, like a target gallery person. I think it's better plant, get wide, and just address the audience. You don't need to be buzzing all over the place. You want to be a big target, especially in the pre-talk when you're the only thing on a gigantic stage, so just spread out, and look large and try to attract attention to yourself as best you can with big body language. And then later, when the volunteers on stage, you become secondary because the show's about them. But now it's how can you block out your position without moving too erratically to be a distraction, but also accentuate whatever your volunteers are doing.
Yeah, Richard Cole, the hypnotist guy there, says blocking is the most important part of the stage performance. Absolutely right. I think stagecraft and where your position is on stage is so important. And it's not the thing that they tend to tell you about a lot of the time when people are coming through.
And that stage presence, there's two things that having good video and having stage presence, that's the difference between a $1,200 show and a $4,500 show, how you come across with those things outside of being a celebrity. If you're a celebrity, you can just fumble around and do whatever the hell you want, but I'm not a celebrity. So, working on stage presence and video all the time, those would probably be my two go-to things to give the clients a good feeling about getting me booked.
Absolutely. And if you have good stage presence, it only makes your videos look better. Briefly, before the show started, we had a bit of a brief chat about kind of contracts and riders, and when performers turn up sometimes, when they've been told that there is good sound, when they've been told that there's certain things within their rider, and you arrive and then that's not the case. Tell us a bit more about that.
So this is the difference between an amateur and a professional. An amateur shows up and says, I can't believe I've got a 12 by 12 stage. That's my rider totally says this, or I can't believe they put this and this, and that's not what my rider says. Okay. So it's an amateur that assumes that the client read anything you gave them. I don't care if they signed off on it until they're actually saying it back to you, or even better is I am relentless in most cases until I'm actually talking to the person that will be on site, pressing the on button in charge of the sound, until I am talking to that guy and that gal, and they're telling me, we got what you asked for, no problemo. Then I'm not comfortable because if I'm flying in, I've got to rely, it's going to affect my show and my ability to do my job if something falls through the cracks. And many times we've discovered some fancy idea the client was having with the stage. I mean, part of my pre-event questionnaire says, hey, are we using a riser stage? What's the dimensions? And then they go and they measure it, and they gave me some weird number, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about that. Why'd you do that? And they come up with crazy things. You don't know why, but they certainly weren't reading what you sent them or crossing that off. And so that's part of being professional. That's the work of it, is doing that, especially corporate events in that middle range, 150 or less. They don't have a big production outside crew or they're sort of like hobbling it together sometimes. It's, Joni in human resources. That's, just says she got stuck with Christmas party because she's new. And so it's maybe their first big event, so you have to be there to help them make sure that everything's there that needs to be there.
Dennis Ridgway says, how do you handle phone filming of your shows? Yeah, I think it's a thing that's quite popular now, of people with their iPhones or Android phones filming your show. Where do you stand on that?
I don't care. I don't say anything about it. They're going to do it, whether you ask them for it or not. So you can either have a heart attack over it, because it's going to happen, or you can just let it fly. Or if you see them with the phone, you go there and you start grandstanding for the phone and having it up for the phone. I don't mind, as long as they're not posting it. Like if somebody asks me, like a lot of times I'll bring a camera because I want the video footage. So this is a good tip, especially because when you're new, you really need the video footage. So these are the magic words. You send them an email, you say, hey, I'm bringing a video camera and a tripod. If you have somebody on your team that would like to film this performance, I would be glad to make you a complimentary copy. Right? Now you've just done a value-added thing, and you just now got some new footage that might be in your promo video or put on YouTube or whatever. You never know when you might do something cool. It could happen. So if you have that footage there, that was great. I'm not even sure if I answered your question. What was the question where I got off my last slide?
How do you handle people using the phone to film it? But no, you're absolutely right.
So, okay. So the only thing is, if somebody actually posted it on YouTube and I became aware of it, then I would tell them to take it down. It's only happened once or twice. I mean, a lot of times there's video footage of you out there, but nobody's going to find it because they don't even remember. They don't remember who. They don't post your name on it or anything. They're just like, "Hey, here we are at the thing," and it's like it's a thing that's got 12 views. It's not going to compete on YouTube because my channel at this point has over 5 million views. So I think YouTube knows where to go for Erick Känd Hypnotist, at least. So it hasn't been a problem. But a couple of times you ask them to take it down, they will take it down. But usually it hasn't been a problem up until now. You know, not as much as you might have think could be a problem. You know, I just tell them I want to be in charge of everything that has to do with my copyrighted show material. You say that, and then the problems just go away.
Yeah, Dennis Ridgway says, what about filming the induction?
What about it? What about it, Dennis? What's the problem with filming the induction?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of hypnotists don't put their inductions out there. And I think there is the myth of if you film the induction, then someone watching it may just drift off and get re-induced. So Jason Morgan says, can they film my induction as they don't work half the time?
No, in fact, for a while when I was putting up video shows for sale afterwards, a lot of time I was cutting out the induction because I realized, you know, that's the most boring part. People just want to see the funny stuff. So I'd post the last part of it, especially if it's like a corporate show. But then I realized a lot of the people that are buying my videos are hypnotists in training and they're learning. They want to see the video. They want to see the pre-talk because technically speaking, those are the two technical parts that are most important. Once you get that stuff out of the way and you're golden, the improv part is, you know, like blocking and so forth. So, I do, you know, corporate type of induction. I like to do a Dave Ellman group type of induction because a lot of corporate groups, the ones that are sort of reserved, I really a little reluctant to start slamming them down in the trance because they ain't having it. So, but college kids, the filtering system I use is I have them lock their hands in the audience. And then if their hands are genuinely locked, they can't get them apart. Maybe I'll get them up on stage and from there, drop them. And I've actually posted that specifically on YouTube just to kind of show how I formulate that. Because I was really proud of the effect of that. The first time I did it was, and I'm not the one who invented that kind of stuff, but the first time I did it, and I just did an instant induction, but their hand was already locked. So they're already good to go. So I went up to them and I said, all right, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to touch on the top of your hand. Eyes go shut, body relaxed, da-da-da. You go to that first person and they just drop like a rag doll. And I heard behind me an audible gasp from the audience. I'm sure it was college or high school because that's where I do those kinds of things. And I'm like, oh, this is so awesome because now the induction is equally as entertaining as the other stuff because it has the shock and awe value. So and it's probably actually more effective for the campus demographic to do those types of inductions than to do a long-winded progressive relaxation induction. My opinion, you know.
Sorry, Dennis Ridgway says, I know of a case where the induction was filmed. The girl was showed the induction whilst driving, hit a car, and they sued the hypnotist. Did
they win?
I was going to say, I think that's a only in America story. I think sometimes because hypnosis is so unique, it can be used as a get out of jail free card sometimes for cases such as driving or anything like that, anything that's different or unique.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't mean to be flip about it. You know, it's definitely, you have to be super cautious. I used to do things where I remember for high school shows, I would used to emerge my volunteers, do some post-hypnotics, and then have them standing and just drop them in a trance while they're like standing out in the audience or maybe falling into somebody's arms out in the audience. But then I realized you can't trust these high schoolers. They start screwing around with their friends. They're poking them, sticking the camera, and they're thinking, you know, they're not going to be responsible. They got this person on your hands. You're responsible, but now you got them spread out all over the place. and they're being victimized by their friends. So like, okay, I'm not emerging them out there anymore, because if you expect high schoolers to act like mature adults, you're an idiot, right? It's not going to happen. So, you know.
Yeah. Apparently they settled out of court. It does say a lot about the person that would show someone that is driving a hypnotic induction.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we've got a great clip here from one of your shows. I believe this is a college show. It's great because I love how you deal with the people on stage, and it would be so easy to take this down an adult themed way, but it's not. It's done in such a nice, clean, polished way. And the facial expressions, and again, when we talk about blocking, you know, people watching this can see exactly what's going on without you blocking it. And it's a great clip. So I'm going to play that now, and then when we come back, we'll carry on chatting.
I want you to imagine in your mind your favorite body part, whatever that may be. What? I don't know what it could be. Maybe it's their hands or their hair. Danger. I'm not going to ask him, see? I want to come back next year. So anyway, on the count of 5, you'll open your eyes, and whatever that favorite body part is will grow 5 times larger. 1, coming on up, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Whoa! Look at the size of that foot! 20 foot, that is amazing. Look at the hair on this woman here. Love it. Look at the biceps on this guy. Look at the leg on this woman. What do you got going here? Alright, there you go. Look at the lips on this man. Say your name? Yeah, no, all right. Something about the lips. What do you get on here? I use big. Big also. Your lips are not as big as his. Look at those things. You don't want those like that. I'm not sure what I want to ask. You seem pretty happy.
I'm slim thick now.
And Wallace. What are you doing?
I don't remember them being this large.
I don't think I did this right. I agree, but that's a $10,000 value right there. Please, slave stuck to that chair, and the train is gone.
Oh, I appear to have lost you, Eric. 1 second. Let me just refresh this screen 1 second, see if we can get Eric back. Hey, he's back. There we go.
Hey.
Show my for a second then. That was a great clip. Just the whole when he looks at his hands and goes, "I don't think I've done this right." It's just absolute comedy gold. What hair I'm losing? Oh, but so we spoke earlier about as well, and you were saying that you're changing your microphone and your kind of tech setup at shows now. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was experimenting with, I bought a microphone, and I'll show you in a second here, that I was wanting to experiment with just binaural recordings, that both ears, just for, kind of personal experimentation. And like if that last clip, you notice the sound was a bit hollow, echoey, because it was basically just the camera and where the camera was positioned. And by the way, just a side note, I'm always aware of where that camera is. So I am moving my body and I'm playing for that camera. So that's why you notice the person never got blocked that entire time, even though I didn't even make any big moves to not even, sometimes I crouched down, but I made sure that camera never blocked the person I was talking to, because that's who I'm playing to. That's my person in the audience. But I bought this microphone, and their Zoom microphone makes a couple. This one's a Zoom H3. And when I was looking at it, I realized it's got a place to put a tripod fix, and you can also remote control it with your phone. So I only got a chance to use it on one show before the pandemic hit, but I planted it. I put it right at stage side on a tripod, so it's picking up sound in stereo as if it was a person sitting in the front row. Wow. And that turns out awesome, right? It's sort of like the sound is clean. It's not echoey. You hear exactly what the person in the front row is going to be here, plus even a little bit of the warmth from the voice of the person on stage, because they're only like 15, 20 feet away. So I'm kind of excited to use this thing. Once I'm really not doing a ton of video right now, because I don't like video with masks and face shields on it, because dates the video. But I'm kind of excited to up the sound. It's a big upgrade to get a 4K camera, but the sound is just as important. When you have good sound, it really ups the game. So I'd love to get my promo upgraded to the higher quality sound doing something like this.
Absolutely. We talk about challenges on this show, and I'm sure with the amount of shows that you've done during your time, there must have been a standout show that you look back at and it either taught you a lot or it gave you nightmares. Tell us about your most challenging show to date.
The most challenging. I've been doing this for like 20 years. How many do you want? We can go. Do you want something where I'm the challenge because I'm stupid, or the event planner stupid, or the volunteer is stupid? Which one do you want, or all three? So I'll give you a couple. Here's me being stupid. Is early on in my career, the bright idea to give a kid a post-hypnotic that he was going to be Superman, keyword. So he's jumping up and away, trying to get a little momentum to start flying. Big theater show, probably a college, I guess. And he runs up to the back of the theater, and he's out the door. He's gone. There's like 300 or 300 more, 600. I don't remember. There's pretty full theater. And so he's gone, perhaps on the streets of Minnesota, running around as Superman. And I see my whole career leaving. My dreams of being a stage operator are gone. And, what seems like an eternity passed by. And a few seconds later, what he'd done is he ran through the empty lobby, and then he comes bursting into the other entrance on the other side of the theater, right? Because there's two entrances, right? And so then I'm like, phew. So I'm not paying attention because I've just had my career handed back to me. The kid starts running towards the stage, and everybody's like, yeah, right? But then I realized within a second or two, he's running at the stage full blast as Superman. The stage is like waist high. I don't know what he thinks is going to happen, but it looks like he's going to kill himself. It's too late for me to say freeze. He's going 100 miles an hour, right? So what he did was when he got to the stage, he belly dived, and it was a slick wood stage. He went like 20 feet, perfect Superman pose. Crowd goes wild. So it worked out, but couple things could have gone south really fast because that was before I had my develops the acumen for being able to predict all the things that could possibly go wrong. Another example of that where, you know, I had a post-hypnotic where people would get angry at me, start shouting at me in weird foreign languages. I usually do that with several people. And one time in Miami at a senior breakfast show I do every year, 3 girls actually rushed me at the same time and jumped me. And I fell back and fell into a chair and then fell backwards on the stage. And it was kind of perfect, but kind of ridiculous at the same time. And it almost, you know, it was so good. It looked like it was planned, but that was another disaster. So now I always add that suggestion: you will not run towards me. You will not hit me. Right. That's where you develop the suggestions that need to be there. A weird thing that happened with a volunteer one time was it wasn't even a volunteer. It was actually a situation where I was doing the show it was like a post prom. It was at a bowling alley. So I've got the lanes behind me. I'm doing it on the wooden area between the bowling lanes and the rest of the thing. So pretty glamorous venue, as you can imagine. So anyway, everything's going great. But I've got these kids dancing or doing something. I don't remember what they were doing, but some kid walks from the audience and he starts coming and doing these weird things. And I thought, you know, maybe he's doing so. Everybody thought he got hypnotized, came onto the stage. And I started talking to him. Then I started talking to him off mic. I realized he's not responding to anything I have to say. And all the parents are just like, oh, what's going on? You know, they thought they're just looking at me like, what are you going to do next? And they didn't realize it had nothing to do with me. I went over to one of the parents and said, you gotta get this kid. You got to do something with this kid, because whatever he's on, it's not hypnosis. And it turned out he had taken some drugs, and he left in an ambulance. So he was having like some kind of bad trip and walked onto the stage or the performance area. And you know, it took me even a few seconds to figure out what was going on. So the other thing that kind of comes up once in a while that I think is worth mentioning from a technical standpoint, especially for new people, is you have to be ready to be able to deal with somebody that goes into the, what do you say, S-style state, coma state, right? It's surprising. There's a lot of people that are doing shows and they don't know what that is. So won't they be in for a pleasant surprise when they have somebody that's in a deep trance that was completely unresponsive to anything they have to say? How's that going to go over with all the parents that are sitting there or the workforce, you know? So you better be prepared to know what that is and how to get out of it, right? Or how to emerge the person from it. Because I think if you do shows long enough, you will run into it.
Yeah. And it's there was a moment when you know your show is going exactly how you want it to go, and then all of a sudden it's like you've got to pull all your focus and deal with this while still trying to maintain some kind of show. So yeah, that's always a challenge. So a quick question from Richard Cole. Great question as well. How did you get started in stage hypnosis? Who was the first hypnotist that you saw, and who is your inspiration at the moment in the industry?
The first hypnotist I ever saw I was about 8 years old at the Orange County Fair in California. And even though I was only 8, I totally remember this. He did an induction where he had everybody holding onto a rope and they got their hands locked onto the rope. And there was a promotional giveaway at some of the fair booths where people had these yardsticks. So I remember a guy in the volunteer had his hand locked to a yardstick because he was holding onto it, watching this thing. And man, that just kind of blew me away. I remember so many things about the show, even as young as I was. I even bought a hypnosis book out of a comic book, and didn't go anywhere because I wasn't smart enough to understand or get it. Even though I'm trying to hypnotize myself with my little hypno coin, and nothing was. I didn't understand. So later, fast forward a couple decades, I was actually a licensed CPA before. Your country calls it chartered accountant. And then I was working as a controller in a restaurant company. I was just bored. I got everything dialed in. I'm like, I'm going to learn about hypnosis. I'm going to figure this out. And I opened up a phone book, and there was 2 hypnosis schools in San Diego. Apparently, San Diego is a hotbed for hypnosis. So I went to the one close to my house, 12 blocks away. And that was a 250-hour certification program. And then my first stage class, which I took around the same time, was with the what rogue hypnotist he calls himself. Mark Cunningham set up the seminar, but he didn't teach it. The person who taught the stage hypnosis was Michael Dubé, who doesn't really do shows anymore, I don't believe, because he just became a full-time lawyer. But he's great. He's one of the best guys I've ever seen. So a lot of my role modeling was from him. In fact, the cadence of how I learned to talk and everything, because I was modeling him before I understand why he was doing it, and it just sort of got there through osmosis. And then I learned that he learned a lot of what he learned from Ken Whitener, who's somebody I met when I moved here to Florida. We ended up being in the same neighborhood, referred a few shows back and forth to each other before he passed away. And I inherited a bunch of his shows and much of his library when he passed on, just really quickly. From a massive heart attack, on a golf course. So it was a really weird way to go. Sudden, I'd say as far as, who I really admire in the industry as far as their show and everything and what the life they've created for themselves is probably Mark Savard.
Yeah.
Because he's got this awesome theater show in Las Vegas. He puts attention to all the details. He literally walks in, does the show, and goes home. I mean, he really created a nice life for himself, in the industry. And it's a great show. It's definitely worth seeing. And I think almost anybody in the industry could learn from watching that. Even some things he does in his show that I thought, why does he do that? It doesn't make any sense. And I had an opportunity to ask him once, because we went to a show after a training, and several hypnotists were there. And I said, Mark, why do you stagger to the chairs and put them like too deep? That doesn't make any sense. You're alienating the people in the back row and da. And he's like, he basically had a reason. He's like, look, if I start with 30 people and make room for that, even though I could fit them all in one big, semicircle, the more people on the stage, even if they don't make the final cut, they're all the ones that are going to go and say, I was on the stage, and that sells tickets. Yeah. So he thought through every angle of how to get this show to work. And I'm like, well, he's clearly way smarter than me. So that actually makes a lot of sense, So, So I think he's in a pretty good situation there.
Absolutely. You spoke there about you inherited the library. One of the things it's always interesting to kind of, which books had the most influence. If you were to recommend 2 hypnosis books or business books for people really wanting to kind of level up their game in hypnosis, what would your 2 books be?
I would say I would recommend maybe 3 if that's allowed. I think both the stage operators and the hypnosis coaches could probably benefit by reading Hypnotherapy by Dave Ellman. Yeah. That's good for, because it's so packed with all the classic knowledge. Like there's just no fluff in there. And there's stuff in there that is not really easily available. Talking about signs of trance, talking about the coma state and how to get out of the coma state. The Dave Ellman induction is great for doing stage shows. As far as if you do personal hypnosis sessions, I think anything by Melissa Tiers is really great right now. Yeah. Whether like integrative hypnosis or keeping the brain in mind, because she knows her stuff and she knows all the new research about neuroplasticity and how to integrate it. And anything that she says is not going to go against anything you've already learned. It's going to all be truly integrative. And as far as anybody that wants to learn more demonstrational stuff or take it to the street or do demos at a party, probably Reality is Plastic by Anthony Jacquin, because he really broke it down and just like do this, rehearse it, get it ready, and you're good to go. So that's very valuable, for a newbie, because a newbie opens up Encyclopedia of Stage Hypnosis, their eyes are going to glaze over. They won't know where to begin. It's just a reference book, but not a read through and how to.
I always think Reality is Plastic was exactly what you said. It was one of the first books that took away all the fluff and stuff that's put in there to fill out a book. And it was just like, do this, and this will be the outcome. Great book.
Yeah.
So what's next for you coming out of COVID, getting back on the road? What's your next milestone, your next challenge?
I'm just excited to start doing shows again. I don't really have any big challenges off the top of my head about, it was a big move for me to integrate the coaching business. So now I feel like I've got multiple lines in the water, and I really had plenty of time to do that because of the pandemic. So I was able to set that up, revamp the websites, and just sort of get everything geared so that when people are ready to get busy again, I feel like I've all got the systems to just accommodate the load once they're willing to be decisive again, So I feel like I'm ready to go, and I'm already willing to get on a plane, and I'm over it.
Yeah, fantastic. So final thing, if you were to give one nugget of information, one tip to your younger self that you think actually is one of the main ingredients to become a successful performance hypnotist, what would that tip be?
I think it would be what we alluded to before is especially when you're starting out, videotape, not videotape, whatever tape, video record, actor from the VHS tapes, right? So the video record every single show and watch your show afterwards, because number one, you got to get those clips to embellish your promo reel and allow that to grow and improve, but also watch yourself and improve your stage performance, because like we said, outside of being a celebrity, video and stage presence is the difference between a $1,200 gig and a $4,500 or more gig. That really is probably the main difference in my mind.
Fantastic. Eric, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Some absolute true kind of nuggets of information there that really is beneficial to people that are wanting to take their stage hypnosis career that little bit further as well. So tips to stay well off stage. Richard Cole says, any tips to stay well off stage?
Lots of craft beer, Richard, as you know. Richard gave me the idea for bringing face shields to the COVID volunteers. If it's a school that feels they want to wear masks, whatever, have some face shields for the volunteers and see if they'll let you wear those. And that way the volunteers, you can see their faces, and they won't work every time, but a lot of times they'll let you do that. I'm kind of a working on fitness nut. I sometimes will give that more of a priority than business or, other things, so, because the older you get, the more that's good. When that's gone, it's like my dad still, he's 84. He still swims 4 times a week. He swims a mile.
Wow.
So, and he still looks pretty good for that age. So he's like, keep moving. You got to keep moving, or else you'll regret that you didn't later. It's hard to turn that battleship around once you're over the precipice.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Eric, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'm sure the guys have loved it. If you're watching this on the replay, please, hit up in the comments and Eric will get back to you. If you don't subscribe to the channel already, please do subscribe, and also check out Eric's YouTube channel as well and subscribe to him. It's been an absolute pleasure. Each week we try and bring you a new expert with new nuggets of information, and tonight has been extra special. For me, it is good night. From Eric, final words?
Nope. Thanks for having me. My pleasure. Thanks for everything, Grant.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys.